Hey, what's up guys? So today's video, we're continuing from where we were last time. So the calipers are just about to be dry, and then we got to put them back together, put the pistons back in, put the seals back in, put the calipers on the car, put the brake pads on, and then finally put our wheels back on. So that's where we're at right now. There's the battery that I picked up in the last video. So we're gonna go ahead, put the new battery in the truck. I wanna start it and kind of get everything moving before I drop all the fluids out of the truck. But until I get the calipers on, I don't wanna start it just yet. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, because the brake lines are off. So I really don't need the brake, fluid pumping out any more than it already is. So kind of where I'm at. Let's go ahead and put that battery in, and then hopefully we can start on the calipers next. The rears, we didn't end up removing. They seem to be free, so I might end up just hitting these with a little bit of paint, since they can kind of just dry on there and nobody's going to touch them or anything like that. So I might just clean them up quickly and just kind of put a light coating of that paint on there for now. If you guys are wondering about the paint that I use, so I use like a ceramic based kind of brush on paint, but we dabbed it on with a sponge. So eventually I do want to powder coat these, but just for now, just to look decent until we get the truck back and get everything cleaned up. I just got that duplicolor paint. So like I said, eventually I do want to disassemble the calipers and actually get them powder coated so that it's more durable and looks really nice. But for now, anything looks better than that. So anyways, let's get to work. And there you have it, battery is in. So let's move on to the next little project. Okay, so we're out here and I'm gonna go ahead and just paint the rears while they're on here. I've checked these ones and the pistons aren't seized. I can move the piston back and forth on the pads. So I'm not gonna go ahead and replace, even though I have the parts, I'm not gonna go ahead and replace the pistons and the seals on these because it's gonna be extra work. I'm trying to get this thing done. And the other thing is too, I'm gonna take these off again, like I was mentioning to you, and get them actually powder coated later down the line. So when I take them off the second time, like once we get back to the shop and I take them apart and disassemble them, then I'll put the new ones in. So only reason why we're doing the front ones immediately now is because we have to, like they were frozen, seized, and we couldn't operate the truck like that without the brakes dragging. The rears, not an issue. So we're gonna go ahead and just paint them out here. Since I don't have to touch anything, like I don't have to handle the calipers, I'm just gonna paint them here and they're just gonna sit here free floating, and then once we put the wheel on, we're good to go. So anyways, I got my little trusty sponge. I'm gonna go ahead and dab a bunch of red paint on there and get it done. Oh, and just to mention, I did clean these already with brake clean, so I've already kind of scrubbed them down with brake cleaner and also a wire brush, so we're good to go. So there you have it. Nothing too extensive and not a complete thorough paint job, but just enough so that when the wheel's on, at least it's gonna look decent and match the front. So like I said, I'm gonna take this completely off later, so we'll get a better paint job on there. For now, my hand is covered with the little sponge, but anyways, that's how that looks. And we're gonna do the other side, because if you guys remember what it used to look like, that looks pretty crusty. So we'll go ahead, do the same thing this one. I've already cleaned this up with brake clean, and we'll just dab this one so it looks visually appealing once we put the wheels back on. Okay, so there it is, you guys. So like I said, not picture perfect, but it looks pretty decent, and I almost feel like I should have did it this way on the front, since this is just temporary for now, because this would have been much easier and I could have put the truck back together. Right now I'm still stuck waiting for those other ones to dry before I can handle them and put in the pistons. So if you're gonna do this, I probably just reassembled the calipers, put the new pistons and seals in, and then just kind of dabbed them like this, since we're gonna be redoing it and powder coating them later. But I'm gonna go see if they're finally dry so I can put the pistons and seals back in and we can keep working. And also I was working on this, so this is all the hardware for the calipers. I painted them with this, and I wish they made this in red. It would have been the easiest thing in the world. So this is barbecue and stove paint, and it goes up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's even more than the actual caliper paint itself, plus it dries in 15 minutes. So this stuff is awesome. I've used it on a bunch of different projects in the past, and I just made all the hardware look all good, all clean, all fresh. So that stuff is ready to go. Now we just need the calipers. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble the calipers. The paint is fairly dry, but just in case, I may put down some wax paper just so that the paint doesn't stick. And I'm gonna do the insides right now, because like I said, I want to get the truck back together today, since it's kind of the only warm day that I'll get to work outside before it starts getting into some bad weather. So I'm gonna flip these upside down. I'll mess with this right now. I have brand new .4 fluid. My buddy Nathaniel actually gave me BMW stuff. It's really high quality stuff, plus it's already .4. It's brand new, never used. So what I'm gonna do is, we have two components to this. We have the actual seal itself, and this is what does all the work. And then these are just the dust caps. So hopefully everything goes together fairly smoothly. Seal first, then the piston, and then our dust boot as well. So should be hopefully fairly smooth. And if I can get these in without too much force, then I can go ahead and reassemble them. Even though they're a tiny bit tacky, I'm hoping I can just gently reassemble them so that I can put them together, put the two halves together, and put them on the truck. Okay, so I just experimented with one to figure out how this goes together. So there is two of them installed. And if I had to guess what the actual reason is for these things failing, it's the dust boot itself. Because if you guys remember when I disassembled these, there was only kind of rust just in between here, this top little 1/4 of an inch. Before the actual seal, well, there was a little bit of buildup surface rust there. Well, if you think about it, everybody blames it on, you know, moisture in the brake lines. But that moisture, if it was ever in the brake lines, would be from here up until the actual seal, and from that seal upwards is all dust boot, and that's where all my corrosion was that was actually causing these to be seized. So the seal that these seals actually rest on, like the seat here, it's only trying to grab onto this, and when I was trying to push these down here, it's pretty crappy how much it kind of seats. If you guys look at this, it's just a tiny little 1/8 of a taper, and they don't sit down the nicest. Like that's, so what's happening is actually rust is being introduced by coming around this dust boot and working its way down up to the actual seal for the piston, and that's where the corrosion is happening, and that's where you're actually getting your seizing happening. So if I were to do something more with these, I would probably try to bore these out just a tiny bit. It's like send them to a machine shop just to give you a little bit more clearance, or at least on the portion after the seal, just so that if there's any buildup on this portion before the actual seal, that it would have a bit more clearance. So that's kind of the issue that I've come to the conclusion of with these, and it's pretty much a failure of the design on the actual dust boot itself, but not much I can do about it right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what we do. So you're gonna wanna lubricate everything with only brake fluid. So everything's clean. We're gonna put some brake fluid on our actual square cut seal. Then we'll put that in there, tuck it in. I'm gonna put brake fluid on the actual bore, and then I'm gonna put my dust boot around the lip on the piston, and then we'll push the piston in, and then last but not least, we will push the seal on the dust boot around this ring. So let's do it. Same deal, I'll put some oil on the bore and on the seal. We'll go ahead and put it in. Okay, so we got the two halves done. So we got these two pistons in, these two pistons in. Now we're gonna do the front halves. And again, I wanted to do it this way so that in case we were struggling with it, that this wouldn't be the exposed face that we're looking at and mess up the paint. So I don't think any paint, I don't see any red on that wax paper, so that seemed to work good. The reason why I use wax paper, because I didn't want it to stick to anything. If we use like this paper, it might have stuck to it or something, or you know, any towel, it might have stuck to that or left a weird mark. So I think that's a good way of doing it. Let's go ahead and move these to the side and get those two done. All right, there we go, and the pistons are in and the seals are in. Just make sure, because I did kind of make a funny mistake, is make sure you put the seal in this way. So it looks very extremely similar on both sides. The difference being this side has the lip right here. I don't know if you guys can see that with the camera, but this lip has to go over top, whereas that side looks like this. So make sure you put the seal in the correct way, otherwise you'll be fighting to get it over top of that lip. Now I'm gonna run over here and get my bolts. They're all dry, good to go. So let's bring those inside and reassemble those calipers. Okay, here we go. So let's go ahead and reassemble our calipers with our freshly painted bolts. And there's 4 of them that hold them together. So we'll go ahead and put these all in. All right, they're fully assembled. Let's go ahead and bring them outside and finally put them on the car. And we have brand new brake pads too. All right guys, let's go ahead and hang our freshly painted and reassembled caliper. Okay, next up, calipers all on. We'll go ahead and drop in our pads. And they have a squealer tab on all 4 of them, so it shouldn't matter which one is which. So we'll drop them in like that. Just one other thing to note on these pads, and it's not just these pads because they're cheaper. I've had this on $300 race pads. Always double check the openings and the cutout of the actual pad. So if you'll notice, I had to open it up just on the end there. This was originally kind of just the way it's shaped. See how this kind of knurls in? That was hitting and not letting the pad fully seat. So doesn't matter what pads you get, what vehicle, always double check the fitment of the pad, because this was hanging up. So as you can see, this is kind of bent in at the end, and that was touching, preventing my pad from fully seating. So I had to just hit it with the angle grinder there on both sides, and now it fits perfect. Okay, I'll show you guys how I modified these pads. Like I said, it's not that crazy, but here we go. Okay, this side's done. Let's move on to the passenger side. All right, let's install the passenger side now. Same deal. Okay guys, so brakes are all done. There's a bunch of construction going on next door, so a bunch of probably background noise, but got all the brakes on. I still need to bleed them, but I'm gonna wait for either Nathaniel or a friend to come help me bleed them. But in the meantime, since the truck is still up, I wanna go ahead and start it. We got that new battery in there. We'll go ahead and start it, and I'm actually gonna put it in drive and just let everything kind of spin, because I kind of want to see if I can just get some movement or maybe tiny bit of heat in that rear diff. And I'm gonna try and just drain all the fluids. So that's kind of the plan here. Let's go ahead and we'll start it up. Okay, so after running it, I'm gonna go ahead and I gotta work in the dark, unfortunately, but I'm gonna just remove the drain bolt on the diff and the transmission and hopefully the engine, and we'll get all the fluids out, all the old stuff. Okay, so it's still nighttime and we've drained all the fluids, and a bit of an issue, but we'll get into that in a second. We got nasty Nat and I just kicked the light off. Ooh, light's back on. No, I don't have the wrench. So right now we're just doing bleeding the brakes because he's got to take off on a vacation tomorrow morning, so he's giving me some last minute help. But our oil cooler lines are puking, so that's gonna be the next thing. I gotta try and find, it is super common on these trucks that the oil cooler lines start leaking. Maybe be able to see them right there. They both loop in from the block over to here, and they're notorious for going, and when I started it, they started puking. So now I gotta try and find these rare fittings, and trying to find anything up here is next to impossible, but we're gonna try to do that, but we're focusing on the brakes right now. All right, so here we go, we'll pump the brakes. Ready? Okay, I got pressure on. Sinking, yep. Sinking, 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 floor. Okay, so the brakes are all bled, we're good. Nathaniel had to go home, and I don't blame him. So we're still out here in the dark, and I'm removing this fender liner so I can get at those oil lines easier. So I pretty much got it out. You guys didn't miss much there. But yeah, I just removed a bunch of 8mm screws, and now this is gonna come out. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out, and then we'll hopefully loosen our oil cooler lines. So these are the lines of the culprit. They are pretty short. They run from this little oil cooler over to the block right there. And the issue is the crimps. So they're notorious for doing this. This almost should have been a recall. So every single one of these leaks. Doesn't matter if it's a Viper, doesn't matter if it's a truck, if it's a Viper engine, these will leak. So, and it doesn't leak out of the ends, it leaks out of where they did their crimp. So between the rubber and the aluminum, that's where it leaks. So it just keeps puking. So both of them right now are leaking. And yeah, essentially these are kind of quick connects here, and then it's has a -10 AN fitting here. So I'm gonna remove these and see if I can just find almost anything right now to get us by, and I'll get some fancy ones later or whatever. But These are $250 each from the dealer, and one of them is back ordered because so many of them are failing. So yeah, it would have been nice if they recalled this. They honestly should have recalled this, but they didn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove them. They're just this quick release, so you kind of just pull this up, and then there's just these C-clips in there that you just pop out, and then it comes out. So it's pretty simple the way it works. But and then we'll just unscrew these out of here. So I'm gonna take out all the fittings, and I'll see what I can come up with. So there's the quick connect disconnected. So I'm just letting them kind of drain into this pan here, and I'll disconnect the top one too. So just a silly little plastic thing comes off, kind of holds the clip in place, and then you just remove the clip. And here comes the other line. So there you go, 2 lines are out, and I'm gonna remove the fittings out of that cooler next. All right, so I just use a huge adjustable wrench and crack them loose. So they're now loose. I just have to spin them out of here. So there's an O-ring in here is how these ones attached, but I might let them drip a little bit more first. Okay guys, so we have the lines off, but I have to try and find somewhere that can make them or get them to me quickly. So up here in Toronto, it is hard to get parts for anything, I want to say Dodge related, but I'm going to narrow it down to Viper specific. So it's really hard to get parts up here because not too many vehicles of that nature are up here. So I called the Dodge dealership, just so you guys know. They wanted $250 each for one of those lines, and the other one was back ordered with no ETA. So it would have been $500 to try to get them from Dodge, even if you could, but like I said, one of them was back ordered, so it's not even a possibility. And there's companies in the States that have them available, but they want like $250, plus to get expedited shipping up here would probably run about at least $50 to try to get it overnight. Plus you would get hit with duties and taxes at the border, so we're talking like $350 American just for 2 oil lines. So it would get extremely crazy. Plus it would push us back. So I'm gonna try and run around tomorrow or maybe today and see if I can find those oil lines or somebody that can make them. They might have some weird fittings on them, so I have them off the vehicle now. I need to go and see if I can get somebody to make the lines for me. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm hoping it's not going to cause a delay, but I guess we'll find out, and I'll update you guys in the next video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're stopping in for the first time. We got a lot more content on the way, and we are going to be continuing to get this truck on the road so we can get on the road and go on the road trip, bring it back to the shop and get cracking on it, and also get back started on our Dodge Dakota RT project, where as soon as we get back, we're slapping on that Pro Charger Supercharger kit and getting it good and ready to go. All right guys, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.